At 14:27 on June 14, 1944, Sergeant Gordon Harris crouched inside his Sherman Firefly at the eastern edge of Ligneuvre's Normandy, watching 5 German Panther tanks advance across open fields 800 meters away. 31 years old, 8 days in Normandy, 0 tank kills. The British 7th Armored Division had lost 42 Sherman tanks in 6 days. German Panthers and Tigers dominated every engagement. Standard Sherman 75mm guns couldn't penetrate Panther frontal armor beyond 300 meters. The Germans knew it. They attacked head-on. Harris commanded the only weapon in his squadron that could stop a Panther at range: the Sherman Firefly, a controversial modification that British military brass had tried to kill 3 times before D-Day. In January 1943, the Ministry of Supply rejected the idea of mounting Britain's 17-pounder anti-tank gun inside an American Sherman turret. Impossible, they said. The gun was too large, the turret too small. Britain had better tanks coming: the Challenger, the Cromwell. No need to waste resources on a hybrid nobody asked for. Major George Bridie at Lulworth Armored Fighting School ignored them. He welded a 17-pounder into a Sherman turret anyway. No recoil system, the gun locked rigid. The entire tank absorbed the shock when fired. It worked, barely. The ministry ordered him to stop. In June 1943, Lieutenant Colonel George Witheridge joined the illegal project. Witheridge had been wounded at Gazala in North Africa when his Grant tank was knocked out. He knew what inferior guns cost in lives. Together, Bridie and Witheridge solved the recoil problem, modified the breech mechanism, cut a new gunner's hatch, moved the radio to an external box welded on the turret rear, removed the hull machine gunner to create space for 17-pounder ammunition. The ministry found out, ordered them to stop again. Witheridge went over their heads, used connections with Major General Raymond Briggs and Claude Gibb at the Ministry of Supply, argued that the Challenger tank program was failing. The Cromwell's turret ring proved too narrow for the 17-pounder. The Firefly was Britain's only option before Normandy. In November 1943, the ministry finally approved production. By May 31, 1944, only 342 Fireflies had been completed, 1 per 4 tank troop. British armored regiments entered Normandy critically short of tanks capable of fighting Panthers. The Germans learned fast. Within 3 days of D-Day, Panzer commanders recognized the Firefly's distinctively longer barrel. Orders went out across German tank units: kill Fireflies first, always. Firefly crews started camouflaging their barrels with mud, paint, and wire mesh, trying to look like standard Shermans from distance. It rarely worked. Harris had been a gunner until 4 days ago. His tank commander was killed on June 10th. Panther round through the turret near Tilly-sur-Seulles. Direct hit. Commander dead before the smoke cleared. Harris inherited command. His gunner was Trooper Alec McKillop, 24 years old, Scottish, steady hands, sharp eyes. McKillop had fired exactly 7 times in combat. 3 misses, 4 hits on German half-tracks, never against a tank. If you want to see how Harris and McKillop faced 5 German Panthers, please hit that like button. It helps share these stories. Subscribe if you haven't already. Back to Harris. The 5 Panthers spread into line formation, Panzer Lehr Division markings. They advanced toward Ligneuvre, where British infantry had established defensive positions. 3 standard Shermans sat behind buildings. Their 75mm guns were useless. Harris's Firefly was the only chance. 800 meters, 700, 650. At current speed, the Panthers would reach effective firing range in 90 seconds. Harris positioned his Firefly behind a stone wall on the village outskirts. Hull down position, only the turret exposed. The 17-pounder's barrel extended 4 feet longer than a standard Sherman, impossible to hide completely. McKillop sat to Harris's left. Loader crouched behind them. Driver forward in the hull. 4-man crew. The Firefly had no hull gunner. That position had been eliminated to store the 17-pounder's massive ammunition. Each shell weighed 38 pounds, nearly twice the weight of standard Sherman rounds. The Panther was Germany's answer to Soviet T-34s on the Eastern Front. 45 tons of sloped armor and firepower. The 75mm KWK-42 gun could penetrate 4 inches of armor at 1,000 meters. Frontal armor measured 80 millimeters at 55 degrees. Effective thickness of 140 millimeters. Side armor, 50 millimeters. Rear armor, 40. Top speed, 28 miles per hour on roads. The Panther's only weaknesses were its sides, rear, and mechanical reliability. German tank crews called it the best medium tank in the world. The Sherman Firefly weighed 33 tons. Armor thickness, 3 inches maximum. Top speed, 25 miles per hour. Inferior to the Panther in every category except one, the 17-pounder gun. Muzzle velocity of nearly 3,000 feet per second. With standard armor-piercing capped ammunition, it could penetrate 163 millimeters of armor at 500 meters, 150 millimeters at 1,000 meters. More than enough to punch through a Panther's frontal armor. The British had also developed armor-piercing discarding sabot rounds that could penetrate 256 millimeters, but those rounds were inaccurate beyond 500 meters and fouled the barrel. Harris carried 12 sabot rounds, 65 standard armor-piercing rounds. The Firefly could kill Panthers if the gunner aimed true. McKillop tracked the lead Panther through his telescopic sight. Range 600 meters. The Panther's commander stood in the cupola, scanning for threats. McKillop adjusted for wind, for distance, for the target's movement. The 17-pounder's recoil was violent. After firing, both gunner and commander had to blink or risk temporary blindness from the muzzle flash. The flash was so brilliant that hedgerows often caught fire after one shot. Undergrowth would burn. The Firefly's position would be instantly revealed. 550 meters. The Panthers maintained formation, advancing at steady pace toward the village. McKillop's breathing slowed. His finger rested near the firing mechanism. Harris had trained gunners before the war. He recognized the signs. McKillop was ready, steady, calm. The kind of gunner who made shots others missed. Harris needed McKillop to make 5 perfect shots. 5 Panthers, one at a time, before the Germans identified the Firefly's position, before return fire knocked them out, before the Panthers closed to range where their own guns became lethal. The margin for error was 0. 500 meters. Harris checked his watch. 14:29. 2 minutes since the Panthers appeared. The lead Panther's commander dropped into his turret. Hatches closed. Combat ready. They knew British tanks were nearby. They were hunting. McKillop centered his sight on the lead Panther's frontal glacis, right where the armor met the turret ring, weakest point on a Panther's front. At this range, the 17-pounder round would arrive in less than 1 second. No time for the German crew to react. McKillop's hand moved to the trigger. At 14:30, McKillop fired. The 17-pounder erupted. Recoil slammed the entire tank backwards 6 inches. Brilliant orange flash blinded Harris for 2 seconds. The hedgerow 10 feet in front of the Firefly ignited instantly. Smoke poured from burning vegetation. Through clearing smoke, Harris saw the lead Panther. The round had struck perfectly, penetrated the glacis just below the turret ring. The Panther rolled forward 3 meters. Stopped. Smoke leaked from hatches. No fire, no explosion. The crew was dead inside. 4 Panthers remained. They scattered immediately. No hesitation. Professional crews. The second Panther veered left. The third and fourth went right. The 5th Panther reversed rapidly. Smoke from the burning hedgerow revealed the Firefly's position. The Germans knew exactly where the shot originated. Harris had perhaps 15 seconds before return fire. McKillop traversed right, tracked the 3rd Panther as it maneuvered. The German tank was moving at 12 miles per hour, turning, trying to present angled armor. McKillop led the target. Adjusted for movement, fired. The 17-pounder roared again. Flash, recoil. The round hit the Panther's side armor at the suspension, penetrated cleanly. The Panther's ammunition detonated. Turret lifted 8 feet into the air, flipped, crashed down inverted. Orange flames erupted from the hull. 2 Panthers destroyed in 40 seconds. The remaining 3 Panthers opened fire simultaneously. 3 75mm rounds screamed toward the stone wall. One struck 20 feet left, exploded harmlessly. One hit the wall directly. Stone fragments showered the Firefly. The third round passed overhead, close enough that Harris heard it whistle past the turret. The Germans were ranging in. The next salvo would be accurate. Harris ordered the driver to reverse. The Firefly backed 20 feet. New position behind a barn. The move bought seconds. McKillop reloaded. The loader muscled another 38-pound shell into the breech, slammed it closed. McKillop scanned for targets. The second Panther had circled left. Now it was moving toward the village from the northwest, trying to flank. The 4th and 5th Panthers advanced from the east, split attack, standard German armor tactics, divide defensive fire. McKillop chose the flanking Panther, range 450 meters. The German tank was moving fast, presenting its frontal armor. Harder shot. McKillop tracked the movement, led the target by 3 tank lengths. Fired. The round hit low, penetrated the lower glacis, struck the transmission. The Panther lurched. Stopped. Immobilized. Crew bailed out immediately, running for cover. 3 Panthers down. 2 mobile. The remaining 2 Panthers fired again. Both rounds struck the barn. Wood exploded. The structure collapsed partially. Dust and debris filled the air. Harris's Firefly was exposed. The barn provided no cover anymore. The Germans had them ranged. The 4th Panther was 400 meters away, closing fast. Its gun traversed toward the Firefly. McKillop had perhaps 3 seconds before that Panther fired at point-blank range. 1 shot. 1 chance. McKillop fired first. The 17-pounder round crossed 400 meters in .87 seconds. Hit the 4th Panther's gun mantlet, the thickest armor on the tank. 120 millimeters of cast steel. The round penetrated anyway, punched through the mantlet, through the gun breech, into the turret. The Panther's ammunition cooked off. The explosion was instantaneous. The turret separated from the hull, flipped end over end, landed 30 feet away. 4 Panthers destroyed or disabled. 1 remained. The 5th Panther had stopped advancing. Its commander recognized the situation. 4 tanks lost in under 2 minutes. The Firefly was lethal. Continuing the attack meant death. The Panther began reversing, backing toward the tree line. Trying to break contact. Range 520 meters. Growing. Harris made a decision. Let it go. 5 German tanks attacked. 4 destroyed or disabled. 1 retreating. Mission accomplished. The village was safe. British infantry could hold. But Harris knew what happened when German tanks escaped. They reported. They warned other units. By nightfall, every panzer commander within 10 miles would know a Firefly was operating near Lingev. They would come hunting. With more tanks. With better tactics. With infantry support. McKillop kept his sight on the retreating Panther. Range 540 meters. 560. The Panther was moving faster now. 10 miles per hour in reverse. Its commander stood in the cupola again, watching the Firefly, waiting for pursuit. German doctrine emphasized preservation of armor. Losing 4 tanks was catastrophic. Losing 5 was unacceptable. Harris weighed options. Pursue and risk ambush. The tree line could hide more Panthers, could hide anti-tank guns, could hide Panzerfaust teams. Or let it escape and face coordinated retaliation later. Neither choice was good. Harris checked ammunition. 61 17-pounder rounds remaining, 12 sabot. The Firefly's engine was running hot from constant maneuvering. Fuel gauge showed 3/4 full, enough for several more hours of operation. The 5th Panther reached the tree line, 600 meters. It paused. Turret traversed to left, then right. The commander was scanning, looking for threats, looking for opportunities. Then the Panther turned, presented its side armor, started moving parallel to the tree line, not retreating anymore, repositioning. Harris understood immediately. The German commander wasn't running. He was setting up for a long-range duel. The Panther's 75mm gun was accurate to 1,000 meters. At 600 meters, the German had a clear shot. And now the Panther knew exactly where the Firefly was positioned. The collapsed barn, the burning hedgerow, the stone wall. Every landmark was marked. Every firing position was compromised. The Panther stopped, hull down behind a slight rise in the terrain. Only its turret visible. The gun elevated slightly. Aiming. The German crew was ready, experienced, patient. They would wait for the Firefly to move, to expose itself. Then they would fire. One accurate shot was all they needed. The Firefly's armor couldn't stop a Panther round at this range. McKillop centered his sight on the visible turret. 610 meters. Difficult shot. Only the turret was exposed. Small target. Moving target. The Panther's commander knew how to fight Fireflies. Harris ordered the driver forward. The Firefly moved 15 feet right. New angle. Different firing position. The Panther's gun tracked the movement. Both tanks aimed at each other simultaneously, 600 meters apart. Both commanders knew the next shot would decide everything. McKillop adjusted his aim. The Panther's turret was small, 20 degrees of arc visible above the rise. The rest of the tank was protected by terrain. The Panther fired first. The round screamed past the Firefly's left side, missed by 3 feet. Close enough that Harris felt the pressure wave. The German gunner had anticipated the Firefly would continue moving right. McKillop didn't wait. He fired while the Panther's gun was still recoiling. The 17-pounder round flew true, struck the Panther's turret face, right side, penetrated the armor. The turret stopped traversing. Smoke poured from the commander's cupola. The 5th Panther was finished. 14:33. 6 minutes since the engagement started. 5 German Panthers destroyed. 0 British tank losses. The 3 standard Shermans emerged from their positions behind village buildings. Their commanders had watched the entire fight. None had fired a shot. Their guns couldn't reach that far, couldn't penetrate that armor. The Firefly had fought alone. Harris scanned the tree line, looking for more threats. The Germans rarely operated in groups of 5. Panthers usually deployed in platoons of 4 or companies of 12 to 15. Where were the others? He keyed his radio, reported to squadron headquarters. 5 Panthers destroyed near Lingevre. Request reconnaissance of eastern approaches. Need to confirm no additional enemy armor in area. Squadron commander responded. Congratulations. Hold position. Infantry moving up to secure the disabled Panthers. Prisoners if possible. Intelligence wants to examine the wrecks. Harris acknowledged. His crew waited. McKillop's hands were shaking slightly, adrenaline wearing off. The loader sat slumped against the turret wall, exhausted from muscling 5 38-pound shells in 2 minutes. The driver reported engine temperature elevated but manageable. Harris climbed out of the turret, surveyed the battlefield. 4 burning Panthers, 1 disabled with crew escaped. The engagement had lasted 6 minutes, 5 shots fired, 5 hits. Perfect accuracy at ranges from 400 to 600 meters, against Germany's best medium tank, by a crew that had never destroyed a tank before today. British infantry began moving across the field, approaching the wrecked Panthers, securing the area. Harris watched them advance. He knew what would happen next. Reports would be filed, intelligence officers would arrive, questions would be asked. How did one Firefly destroy 5 Panthers? What tactics were used? What ammunition? What range? The engagement would be studied, analyzed, documented. But Harris also knew something else. The Germans would study it too. They would learn that Fireflies were more dangerous than expected. They would develop new tactics, new formations. They would start hunting Fireflies with multiple tanks, with coordinated fire, with ambushes. Today's victory would make tomorrow harder. The war continued. Lingevre was one village, one engagement. Thousands more lay ahead across France and into Germany. By 1600 hours, British intelligence officers arrived at Longève. They examined the 5 destroyed Panthers, measured penetration holes, documented damage patterns, interviewed Harris and McKillop, recorded every detail of the engagement. The intelligence report would reach 21st Army Group headquarters by evening. By the next morning, it would be distributed to every British armored regiment in Normandy. The examination revealed critical information. All 5 Panthers belonged to Panzer Lehr Division, Germany's elite armored training demonstration unit. Experienced crews, best equipment. These weren't green replacements or second-line troops. They were veterans transferred from the Eastern Front. The fact that one Firefly had destroyed 5 Panthers from Panzer Lehr validated every argument Witheridge and Brighty had made 18 months earlier. The Firefly worked. It could fight Germany's best tanks and win. But the engagement also revealed the Firefly's limitations. The muzzle flash had set hedgerows on fire, revealed position instantly. The gun's length made maneuvering difficult in villages and bocage country. The lack of a hull gunner meant reduced crew flexibility. Loading the massive 17-pounder shells exhausted loaders quickly. Sustained combat drained crew stamina faster than in standard Shermans. The Firefly was a specialist weapon, lethal when employed correctly, vulnerable when exposed. Harris's after-action report included one detail that would become legend among British tank crews. During the engagement, Harris never shouted fire commands. Instead, he spoke quietly to McKillop. Steady instructions. Calm corrections. Make it count. The 17-pounder ammunition was expensive. Each round cost significantly more than standard Sherman shells. Harris treated every shot as precious. McKillop responded with perfect accuracy. 5 shots, 5 kills. 0 wasted ammunition. The engagement at Lingève was not the only Firefly success on June 14th. Near Villers-Bocage, another Firefly destroyed 3 Panthers in an afternoon engagement. At Tilly-sur-Seulles, a Canadian Firefly knocked out 2 Tigers. The pattern was clear. When properly employed, the Firefly could dominate German armor. But Firefly crews were learning hard lessons. The tank's distinctive silhouette made it a priority target. German tank commanders were adapting tactics specifically to counter Fireflies. Panzer crews started engaging Fireflies first from maximum range. They coordinated fire to suppress Fireflies while other tanks maneuvered. They used infantry to spot and mark Firefly positions. By mid-June 1944, Firefly survival rates were concerning. The tanks were effective, but vulnerable. British commanders requested more Fireflies. The Ministry of Supply accelerated production. By late June, almost 400 Fireflies had been delivered. Still not enough. Demand exceeded supply. Every regiment wanted more. Every engagement proved their value. The hybrid tank that the ministry had tried to kill 3 times had become Britain's most valuable armored weapon in Normandy. Harris and McKillop continued fighting. Their Firefly survived Longève, but Normandy was just beginning. Operation Epsom was coming. Operation Goodwood would follow. Between June 14th and August 25th, 1944, Harris and McKillop's Firefly destroyed 9 more German tanks. 3 Panthers, 4 Panzer IVs, 2 Stug assault guns. 14 total tank kills in 72 days. They survived engagements at Villers-Bocage, Caen, and Falaise. Their Firefly took 11 hits from German fire. 8 from machine guns, 2 from Panzerfaust rockets, 1 from a 75mm tank round that struck the turret at extreme angle and ricocheted. The crew walked away each time, repaired the tank, returned to combat. McKillop never wasted ammunition. His accuracy remained exceptional. 47 17-pounder rounds fired in combat after Longève. 31 hits. 66% accuracy under combat conditions, against moving targets at ranges from 200 to 700 meters. British 7th Armored Division recognized both men. Harris received the Military Cross in July. McKillop received the Military Medal. The citations mentioned their actions at Longève specifically. 5 Panthers destroyed. Perfect shooting. Courage under fire. But most Firefly crews weren't as fortunate. By August 1st, British forces in Normandy had lost 118 Fireflies, 43% of all Fireflies deployed. German focus on killing Fireflies first was working. Panzer commanders developed effective tactics. They used terrain to close range quickly. They coordinated multiple tanks to overwhelm single Fireflies. They employed Panzerfaust teams to attack from close range, where the Firefly's gun was less maneuverable. Despite losses, Firefly effectiveness was undeniable. Intelligence analysis from June through August showed that Fireflies accounted for 64% of all German heavy tank kills by British forces. Panthers and Tigers destroyed at nearly 3 times the rate of standard Shermans. The 17-pounder gun proved decisive. Armor-piercing, discarding sabot ammunition became more available by late July. With sabot rounds, Fireflies could penetrate even Tiger II frontal armor at reasonable combat ranges. By late August, British armored regiments were receiving 2 Fireflies per 4-tank troop instead of 1. Production had increased. Conversion facilities in Britain were processing 60 Shermans per week into Fireflies. The Ministry of Supply that had rejected the project twice now made it highest priority. Winston Churchill personally monitored Firefly production numbers. The hybrid tank had become indispensable. Harris and McKillop fought through France into Belgium and Holland. Their Firefly was finally knocked out near Nijmegen in September during Operation Market Garden. German 88mm anti-tank gun. Direct hit to the engine compartment. The tank burned. The crew escaped uninjured. Harris and McKillop were reassigned to a new Firefly within 3 days. They continued fighting until Germany surrendered in May 1945. After the war, Harris returned to England, worked as a garage mechanic in Yorkshire. Never spoke much about the war. McKillop went back to Scotland, became a teacher. Both men survived. Both lived quiet lives. The engagement at Lingèvre became a footnote in regimental histories. The Sherman Firefly's impact on the war was profound. Between D-Day and VE Day, approximately 2,100 Fireflies were converted and deployed. They served with British, Canadian, Polish, and Free French armored units across Northwest Europe and Italy. Fireflies destroyed an estimated 900 German tanks and assault guns, Panthers, Tigers, Panzer IVs. No other Allied tank matched this record against German heavy armor. The 17-pounder equipped Firefly accounted for more German heavy tank kills than any other Allied armored vehicle in the European theater. The engagement at Lingèvre on June 14th became a training case study. British tank schools analyzed Harris and McKillop's tactics. 5 Panthers destroyed in 6 minutes. Perfect accuracy under pressure. Proper use of terrain. Fire discipline. The engagement demonstrated what Fireflies could accomplish with skilled crews. It validated every argument for the program's existence. Tank commanders studied the battle for decades. The tactics Harris employed became standard doctrine for Firefly operations. But the deeper lesson was about innovation in wartime. The Firefly almost didn't exist. Rejected 3 times by military bureaucracy. Built by 2 officers who ignored orders. Approved only when conventional solutions failed. The hybrid tank that nobody wanted became the weapon that British armored forces needed most. Sometimes the impossible solution is the only solution. The Ministry of Supply that tried to kill the project 3 times eventually made it the highest priority program in British tank production. The 17-pounder gun continued service after World War II. It equipped British tanks through the early Cold War. The Centurion tank mounted an improved version. The gun's basic design influenced post-war anti-tank weapon development for 2 decades. The Firefly itself was retired by 1946, replaced by newer British tank designs like the Comet and later centurion. Most were scrapped for steel. Only a few survive in museums today. The Tank Museum at Bovington displays a fully restored Sherman Firefly. Imperial War Museum has another. The Musée des Blindés in France preserves a third. These are the last remaining examples of the controversial hybrid that changed armored warfare in Northwest Europe. Harris died in 1987 at age 74. He worked as a garage mechanic in Yorkshire for 40 years after the war. McKillop died in 1993 at age 73. He taught mathematics at a secondary school in Edinburgh. Neither man wrote memoirs. Neither sought recognition beyond the medals they received in 1944. They were tank crew. They did their job, survived, went home. The engagement at Lingevre was 1 day in a long war. 5 Panthers destroyed, 6 minutes of combat, a footnote in regimental records. But for the British infantry defending that village, and for every tanker who learned from their example, it mattered. If this story moved you the way it moved us, do me a favor, hit that like button. Every single like tells YouTube to show this story to more people. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We're rescuing forgotten stories from dusty archives every single day. Stories about tank commanders and gunners who faced impossible odds with rejected weapons and perfect aim. Real people, real heroism. Drop a comment right now and tell us where you're watching from. Are you watching from the United States, Canada, Australia? Our community stretches across the entire world. You're not just a viewer. You're part of keeping these memories alive. Tell us your location. Tell us if someone in your family served. Just let us know you're here. Thank you for watching, and thank you for making sure Harris and McKillop don't disappear into silence. These men deserve to be remembered, and you're helping make that happen.